hope you're enjoying my dad's videos. Make sure to share this video with family and friends, like and subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you get notified for all my dad's new videos. My social media will be tagged down below so you can follow it. And just remember, Jesus loves you.
Hi guys, just one little factor here before we start this video here today. If for any reason my YouTube channel gets taken down, which could happen because we're challenging the deep state and we're challenging the powers behind the scenes. But if it does get taken down, I'm going to share the link below here. We have a website, drcharlieward.co.uk, and you can subscribe on there to our updates and our newsletters, etc., that are being produced by Lee Hemington. But you'll be able to keep in touch with what's going on. So at the moment, everything is nice and smooth. But if for any reason we get taken down, you simply go to my website, drcharlieward.co.uk, and register there, and you'll get all the information as to where we are or where you can view our videos.
And good afternoon. Now we are back with part 2 of Dr. Charlie Ward. And I'm going to bring Charlie on the screen. Charlie, there you are.
How was your dinner, Charlie?
It was absolutely beautiful. My wife is, everything is made at home. We grow our own vegetables here and what have you. And she's very much into healthy eating. She was an international gymnast for 10 years of her life. And then she was in one of the major circuses for 10 years of her life, and she's now a gymnastics instructor. So she's very, very careful with what she eats, and she makes sure that I eat very, very well. I've lost around 17 kilos since she's taught me how to eat and look after myself. I was Mr. Blobby beforehand.
You are a very lucky man, Charlie.
I am a very lucky man, and I'm very, very blessed. She's everything I ever wanted in a woman, and about 50% more.
Wow. Wow. That is fantastic.
Congratulations.
Well, when you are in England, do come and stay and bring your beautiful family.
Yes, that would be lovely.
I don't know if you come over to England. Are you allowed back in England, Charlie?
I'm allowed back in England, and I'd absolutely love to, because I have my grandson and my son down in Cornwall.
Fantastic.
Oh, yes.
And I don't really fancy staying with my ex-wife.
No.
Yeah. It'll be a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely lovely to come and see you.
Good. Now, listen, you've just sent through this document, which I'm going to post on our underneath the link, which actually does say the Fed now services a new interbank real-time gross settlement service with clearing functionality to support instant payments in the United States. So, and that is dated to September the 10th, though, 2020. Which has not happened yet. So I suppose, is that when it goes into service?
Yeah, I get my information earlier than most people.
That's amazing.
Well done you. Well done you. Okay, well, you heard it first here. A new Federal Reserve actions to support interbank settlement of instant payments, which is exactly that you were talking about. So we'll just post that and everybody can have a read.
This is the quantum financial system.
Yeah, good.
So, and there's for people who like reading, there is plenty to read about the technical side of it there, so they can get a clear understanding. I shared it when I first arrived this morning with one of my lawyer friends, and he was like, "Thank you. That's just what I need."
Good. So, let me ask you this: we were talking a little bit about this financial reset. The average person that is worried about their money. What should they do
with their savings?
I think you summed it up in the first sentence. The average person is worried about their money. Money has been controlling their lives all of their lives. They don't know what it's like to live in the world that we're moving into, and they're going to find it very difficult, because money in the world that we're going to move into, this quantum financial system and the global financial reset, money will not be the be-all and end-all anymore. Looking after humanity will be far more important than money. And ever since I was born, people have been obsessed with money. And we lose sight of looking after each other. I pointed out something the other day that most people in the Western world hadn't even woken up to, that if you go to the Far East, the Middle East, old people, when they get old, the young people look after them.
They do.
You come to the Western world, as soon as you start getting old, you're a problem. Need to put you in a home. And we've lost our moral compass. These people looked after us. They went through the war, most of them, and they've come through and they've known what it was to survive. They've looked after us all their lives, and as a thank you, we stick them in an old people's home. What's gone wrong, John?
And then you know what they do to them in the old people's home is they drug them and they put them on these psychiatric drugs, which of course I have been quite outspoken about.
Yep.
They're it's like a chemical lobotomy. They really put them on.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's not a good thing at all.
It's not.
The global reset is going to happen.
It's happening now as we speak, and the good thing is people who've got money, that's fine. You'll still have money. But the people who don't have money will come into money, and they'll be a lot better. And it'll be those of us that have been blessed in our lives to help those who've not been so blessed as to what to do with their money to improve the quality of life. Because you and I have made enough mistakes in our lifetime that we can help educate these people on what's good and what's bad and how to look after yourself. Because you and I both know, the amount of young children that inherit a fortune, one of the first things they do is lose their way.
They do.
And if you take how many people have won the lottery in England and how many have gone bankrupt of the people who've won the lottery, because they don't know how to handle it.
Well, it's funny you say that, because a lot of people actually come to stay at Camelot after they've won the lottery.
Yeah.
Meet a lot of them because the lottery is called Camelot and the hotel's called. So they sort of put two and two together and they come and stay here.
Yeah.
Amazing the number of lives that are actually destroyed when people lottery is. It's quite sad, really.
It is, and there's so many things that we could do that would actually enrich our own lives. And it's not just to do with money. The one thing I learned with my own children was just spending time with them had far more value than money. And I've been very blessed with little Justin there, having lost my firstborn son. You never think you'll ever get over it, but I learned with him that when I was younger, I was working all the hours that God sent to try and provide for my family, but I wasn't there physically. And there's a very fine balance between spend time with your family and making money. And I'll tell you right now, you cannot do both. You can't work really hard and make money and have all the time in the world with your family. And finding that balance, I never found it. I was out working all the time. Now I've got older, I'm spending all the time with my family. So it's very, very difficult. It's not easy. You have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice something. You can't have the best of both worlds. And the trouble is everybody wants the best of both worlds. And now as I've got older, I've started to appreciate what's actually valuable in my life. And today I'm at home with my beautiful wife, and Justin's off playing with his friends, and we come back, we eat together 2 or 3 times in the day. And just enjoying spending time with them. My wife at the start of this journey thought I was completely nuts. And then she just said, well, show me the evidence, because she's Turkish. And I tease her, I said, you're 95% perfect, 5% terrorist. But it's the 5% I love. And she's absolutely adorable, but she's, show me the evidence, show me the evidence. And once I showed her the evidence of the downgrade to nothing more than the common cold back in March, and then I showed her evidence from the government website, from the WHO, from the CDC. And then we started getting into the realms of, I interviewed a number of doctors, including Dr. Andrew Kaufman, professional doctors who, because they're not funded by the WHO or Big Pharma, can actually tell the truth. And they were very open. And I've only had 2 videos that have been taken down out of 185 since I started, and they're both from doctors telling the truth.
Well, we were banned. The first time we were banned from Facebook is because we put up we interviewed a doctor that was pro the hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah.
And that one. What have you discovered about the hydroxy? I noticed the president just tweeted about it just now.
Look, the one thing I learned which really made me angry was Bill Gates, because he's now the largest funder to the WHO, has blocked every single patent that he hasn't got shares in the company. First of all, people should wake up and say, why? Forget hydroxychloroquine, talk about med beds that can actually cure people in no time at all. Then you get onto hydroxychloroquine, which is so simple, and without crossing boundaries now, because I can. If you've got a natural illness, you can bet there's a natural cause, a natural solution for it. The easiest of all is cannabis, THC and CBD oils for cancer. But it's been blocked. And they've got all the excuses in the world. You and I grew up, John, when you got dock leaves besides stinging nettles, because one gave you a sting and the other one stopped it hurting. This is nature. This is nature. And most of the natural things out there, cannabis plant is a natural plant. And, there's so many remedies out there and so many cures out there. But if I learned a massive lesson early on in one of my videos, I was talking to Lee Dawson, and we found out that if you put a lemon into the freezer, make sure it's got no wax on the outside, freeze it overnight, and then grate the skin of a lemon and put it on a salad, it's 400 times more powerful than chemotherapy, and it has 0 side effects.
Wow. I have not heard that.
And then when you do research and find that Bill Gates tried to patent the lemon and was rejected, you go, really?
Really?
He tried that.
He tried to patent the lemon.
Wow.
And you can't do that. But it's 400 times more powerful against cancer. And when you think about it, a lemon...
Give me that one again. So if somebody's got cancer, let's say, and they don't want to do the chemotherapy, what do they do with the lemon?
Right. First of all, before we go down this line, first of all, if you've got cancer, even up to level 4, the first person you need to contact is Lee Dawson. We have to be careful we don't say that we can cure it, because everyone that's claimed they can cure it gets shot dead for some reason or dies of mysterious circumstances. So we can help reduce it to 0. Lee Dawson has been doing this for many, many years. He's in the Hall of Fame for mixed martial arts. He knows the body. He's a pure example of what you should be. But he's been working on lots and lots of people and trying to get them better from lots of illnesses. Cancer is one.
Right.
And he was the one that pointed out that if you get a lemon, as long as the ones in England, apparently to make them look nice, they're covered in wax.
Yes.
Make them last longer. So you need to. We're lucky here. We're blessed in Spain. We've got lemons on the tree, so those ones don't have wax on them.
But you can buy unwaxed.
If you get unwaxed ones, then you put them in the freezer overnight. You grate the skin off the lemon and just put it on the top of a salad and eat it as grated lemon on the top of a salad. It's 400 times more powerful than chemotherapy with 0 side effects.
Wow. That's very interesting.
And the amount of people we've been trying to guide on that. And look, I try and say things with a sense of humor to get people to understand it. If you've got bowel cancer, why are you putting CBD or cannabis oil in your mouth? You have another point of entry which is closer to your bowel. That's common sense. There's certain things that make sense. If you've got throat cancer, you put it in your mouth. Bowel cancer, you put it in a different place. And then you don't get all the side effects. Because, yes, you do feel a bit heady. For people who've never taken it before, you do feel a bit heady.
Even the one where they take that, what is it, THC out?
You're absolutely right. But I think you'll need to talk to Lee, because Lee knows so much more about it than I do.
I'd love to talk to Lee.
Lee Dawson is unbelievably well versed in how to deal with these sort of things. And even like he was explaining about a young child that he's been working with now for about 4 months, that the hospital, because they make so much money out of chemotherapy, threatened to take the family to court to have the child taken off the family if he didn't accept chemotherapy. And Lee Dawson had a lawyer that stood up against them, and they were within hours of taking that child out of Spain to Germany for Lee to help. When the judge threw it out and said that they gave Lee a month to work with this young child, and if it had reduced in size in a month, he could continue, and if it had grown in a month, he had to stop, and in a month it completely disappeared.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And the doctors were like, no, there's something wrong with the machine. We need to do it again.
They always say.
Well, they're chasing the money, aren't they? They're chasing the money. They'll do anything they can. That's why they try and make people, we'll see you again in a couple of months. Well, they know darn well that if you're bad, it's going to get worse in a couple of months. So it's a very, very evil world we're dealing with. And when you've got pure spirits that are trying to help people, and Lee is one of those, he's helped so many people. His wife was Russian, and he did everything he could to help her. He got her well again. She was a gymnastics coach and one of my wife's really good friends. Got her well again. And then another Russian woman came along and said, you never had cancer. You had fibrosis. You need to go on this diet. 3 months later, she died.
Wow.
Very interesting.
Isn't it?
Now, to take up another subject that we haven't touched upon, but I think it's something that people that have followed us would love to hear your views on. As you may know, on January the 1st, the day before President Trump, or New Year's Eve actually it was, the day before Trump took out that military general from Iran, we hoisted, I should say, the Q flag above the battlements of Camelot Castle. And this rather sort of exciting image of the Q flag basically ricocheted around the internet like a ping pong ball for the next 3 days. And of course, people wanted to know what our position was on Q. You are somebody that has done your own research into all matters Q. What is your take on it?
I went right back to the beginning of Q in 1962, when John F. Kennedy had a group of people that he provided information to because he feared for his life. He provided them with information because there was something going on around him that he was not happy about, but he couldn't put his finger on it. We all now know what that problem was. And that problem was his security services weren't on his side. So that was the first foundations I could find of Q. And then when you look at John F. Kennedy's burial site, it's in the shape of a Q.
Yes, it is.
And so is Princess Diana's. And so you follow the journey, and then you find out that in the 70s, they tried to utilize that facility again. And anybody who stuck their head out, linked into this organization of secrecy, was removed. And the same in the 80s and the 90s and so on. And it was about 4 and a bit years ago that they'd done, from what I understand, they'd probably done about 6 or 7 years building this whole thing up again behind the scenes. And then they showed their head and they created a website which was qmap.pub, I think it was. And they started doing Q drops. Now, when they started out doing what's called Q drops, it was brilliant if you were an ex-military mind, because they were all coded and encrypted and everything. So you had to understand numerology, symbology, and astrology, because they were all linked in together, and it was military style. So Q is basically an information source from within the walls of power that comes out the side, not to mainstream media, because at the moment Donald Trump knows that mainstream media cannot be trusted. That's why he uses Twitter. Because I've even watched him say something, and when it's come out on mainstream media, it's completely different to what I heard him say. We all know that. So his tweets are out there, and if you think for 1 second that he makes spelling mistakes or grammatical errors in his tweets, you're absolutely wrong. Everything is loaded, and everything is absolutely spot on. There's a reason for everything. The other day, I don't know if you noticed, he was making a speech, and everybody who's involved listened to it at least 10 times, because he referred to Obama as Prisoner Obama rather than President Obama. And the world just went, what did he just say? And that wasn't a mistake. So it's an information source. Now, I have my own sources of information, and I've been very clear about that. I've got people who I work with behind the scenes in the American government. I've been very clear that I cross-reference it with Fleming. Fleming is a guy that has got a checkered past, let's put it that way, when it comes to information. He's very creative. I don't mind that. That's just individual. I have my own personality too. You have your personality too. That's human nature. We're not robots. We have access to a number of different individuals, and I take that information, I look at the whole picture, and then I just have a word with God and say, just guide me on this one. How do you see it? And he makes it clearer and clearer. At times, I can't believe, John, how clear he makes it to me. Sometimes I find it absolutely smacking me in the face. It's so obvious. And without God's help, I couldn't do that.
God will provide signs if you communicate with him. And, there's that great line in the gospel, ask and you shall receive. And it's a great simplicity, but it is very, very true. And I think we are actually, we entered the age of signs a long time ago, and the signs that all of us have been shown, if one is willing to look, have been very, very obvious. I think your analysis of Q is absolutely spot on. I think that's exactly what it is. It's a way of, I'd noticed it, and then I was invited to attend the Kavanaugh hearing in Washington, D.C. If you remember, when Justice Kavanaugh, there was a dispute as to whether or not he was going to be the Supreme Court judge. And I was in Washington that weekend, and I just felt I had to go to it. And then when I arrived, I was invited by somebody very close in at the White House to attend the actual Senate. And that night, there was a dinner at the Trump Hotel, and I sat next to somebody who was very, very well respected in military intelligence. And I just asked him straight, I said, listen, I've been reading this, what some people are calling conspiracy on the internet about Q. How valid is it? Should I ignore it? Should I pay attention? He said, you absolutely should not ignore it. And it is a very, very relevant part of what is going on. And every single issuance from Q has a meaning. And actually, I've stayed in touch with this guy. He's a very, very interesting guy. In fact, he's probably somebody who you should talk to, Charlie. I'll introduce you privately after the show. And I would definitely say that there's two things, I think. There's Q itself, and then there's the Q movement.
Yeah.
Two separate things, but also the Q movement, I feel it gives the Trump campaign a level of engagement and a level of interest that has been very, very useful. I think one of the most useful things about Q is it's kept the base engaged. And it's allowed people to work out who is who and what is what. Darling, you had a question about the new king situation.
Yes, that's can you shed some light on this, because this is such a controversial subject. Some people refuse to hear it, and some people are absolutely convinced about the legitimacy of the new king. And what I heard you mention it in one of your talks.
Can I just, before Charlie answers, I want to say my position.
Okay.
I am a royalist, and I basically feel that Her Majesty has done an incredibly good job. I don't know her personally, but we have been in communication, and we are acquainted. But I have personally seen no evidence at all that I would consider to be evidence that would validate the theory. But these are times when every theory needs to be looked into. So I don't have any criticism for anybody that has looked into it or that has expressed any views, because I think that everything needs to be put on the table. And with what is at stake at the moment, which is all of our lives and the lives of the innocents, I do feel that everything
should
has
be examined. Yes.
To be inspected, and that includes all of us. And so that's my position, but I've not yet seen evidence. So that's my caveat.
Well, I'm 99% on the same page as you. I'm a huge fan of the Queen and the royal family. Always have been. I've been a royalist all my life. I think they've done an amazing job in a very difficult period of time. She stood up and been counted on many occasions, and the future is the future, but up until now she's done an amazing job, in my opinion. When we came into this lockdown, as you definitely know, I'm very, very good friends with Jack Kidd, because he said that you contacted him yesterday or today to say we were having a chat. But Jack,
while watching, it was our great honour. Jack came to stay here at Camelot with his lovely wife and his beautiful child.
Mia, yeah,
full of life.
Yeah, no, he's a wonderful man, and I love Jack to death. We have a very good relationship. My wife and I actually got married in Barbados and stayed with his mother when we were there. So we got married in Sandy Lane in Barbados, but we stayed for a week at Wendy Kidd's house, which she's a wonderful lady. That's Jack's mother. But they're a lovely family, and we're very, very close to Jack. And I'm forgetting what we were talking about now. We were talking about that's right, King John. So Jack came along to me, and you have to understand that Jack has very close connections to the royal family for a number of reasons. Gemma was married to the Count of Mornington. Sadly, they split up last week. Johnny Kidd is, the Shan Kidd family. They're connected to the royal family. There's a number of connections there. Obviously, the connection with the polo as well. So they get an insight into what's going on. So Jack came along to me and said, "Have you heard about Joseph Gregory Hallett?" And I said, "Never heard of him." So he said, "He's claiming to be King John III of England." I said, "Really? It's a bit strange. What's that about?" So he said, "Well, why don't we investigate it?" So I said, "Okay." He said, "I'll try and make contact with him, and let's see if we can find out what this is all about." So Jack very kindly made contact with, we call him Greg Hallett. And we did an interview with him. And he has a theory. Most people know who've done their history, that the bloodline of the Queen, that they took possession of the throne as the Saxon Coburgs rather than the natural bloodline. So whoever Gregory Hallett is, he's put in a claim that he claims he's the rightful king. Well, first of all, he's a Kiwi. So that sort of shook me. How would a Kiwi be? So I said, "Look, from my point of view, I just don't know. It's all this paperwork. He's got thousands and thousands of pages of paperwork." And one of my friends, Dave Mahoney, who's a film producer and director, said to me, "Charlie, I'd love to document this and investigate it." I said, "Well, why don't you do it?" I said, "Because I haven't got a clue what he's talking about." So I said, "Why don't you do an investigation and a documentary based on what he's saying, and see what you find out. So Dave Mahoney and Lee Dawson went across to England to interview him and go through all his documentation, etc., 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 and started doing a documentary. I'll tell you right now, John, I'm still 50-50. I haven't got a clue. And I'm sat on the fence because at the moment they haven't got all the information. There's one half of me that says, don't be so silly, you can't be. And the other half is well, what's all this documentation about? So I'm letting it run its course because I just don't know. And there's the questions that what stimulates that is the fact that the Queen would have known well in advance that the COVID-19 coronavirus was downgraded to nothing more than the common cold in March, and yet she moved out of Buckingham Palace. Then we hear she goes into indefinite quarantine. That doesn't make sense. Then you hear that she may never move back to Buckingham Palace. Then you see that her own guard is no longer guarding Buckingham Palace, but you've either got the Gurkhas, the Air Force, that are guarding, and you just go, why? Then you see it's all boarded up. Why? I don't know the answers, but my antennas are up going, something is going on. And then Meghan and Harry left in a hurry. There's things that just you question. I don't know the answers, but I'm asking the questions, and I'd like to know. So Greg has all these documents. Anyway, the boys are documenting it all and filming it all. And this is where the sort of grey area comes in. When he submits his documents, he doesn't submit them through a normal court, because the new world that Trump's talking about goes back to common law. So they've submitted the documents through a common law court to Donald Trump, to the Queen, to the royal family, to everybody that matters in government and around the world. Everything has been sent recorded post, that he's submitting his claim to be the leader, if you like. I know for a fact, having talked to him, it's not about him becoming the King of England. He's not wanting to move into Buckingham Palace. He's wanting to be a man for the people, to represent the people without all the figurehead of all the royal household and all that. That's how I understand it from his point of view. But does he have the right to do it? I don't know. I honestly don't. He submitted everything through the courts. Everything has been sent through to everybody. Nobody has responded. They have had to do a second submission by law. Then I speak to other people on the other side of the fence who say, well, the common law court in England has no standing anyway. And I said, well, you would say that. You would say that. And I understand where you're coming from, because at the moment, the maritime law and the courts are set up that way. I totally understand that. But look, this is a journey. This is a marathon, not a sprint. I'm just waiting to see it. And the lovely is, I'm a bit like a little boy who's been locked in his mummy's bedroom and told not to look through the drawers. And I've gone through every single drawer to find out what's going on. And I'm finding it fascinating.
And I think one has a duty to look in all the drawers, and of course one has to look into the nooks and crannies of life. And when you do look into the nooks and crannies of life, you do end up with a more fun adventure.
You do. And I don't know the answers yet.
No. I mean, the only thing that I would say from what I have gathered is that when Her Majesty and President Trump met, they did genuinely get on very, very well indeed. And there was already, from President Trump's side, a very positive attitude towards Her Majesty, because his mother, Mary Trump, was
absolutely adores her.
A great supporter. There's that great story, I don't know if anybody's seen it, about Trump's Bible and how it came out of the Christian revival movement in the Outer Hebrides. We actually travelled during the election campaign to Tong in the Outer Hebrides to visit the birthplace of Donald Trump's mother as a sort of a pilgrimage. People do that, but we did do that, and his maternal lineage is extremely important to him.
Very much.
Yes, very much.
And his mother was very, very warm to the royal family. In fact, insisted on the young Donald watching the sort of opening of Parliament and every single royal thing that there was. Donald, as a young Donald, was exposed to the royal family, and I know that when he met Her Majesty, he was very, very pleased to have the opportunity to do that. And I also know from sort of internal feedback that actually they got on like a house on fire, and they really enjoyed each other. And there's great photographs of them chatting. But you could capture a moment in a photograph, and it might not be reality. But I can say so. The other thing that I would say in terms of Her Majesty not coming down and not going to Windsor and so on. I don't know if you remember, but when Princess Diana died, there was quite a delay in Her Majesty coming back down to London.
From Scotland, yeah.
And probably that was in error, and probably that's one of the few things that Tony Blair did do correctly, was to get her to come down to London. But sometimes, I suppose we forget that they are a family, and she is sort of 94 years old. I did see one video that you did. You were interviewing somebody who said, well, how can a 94-year-old get on a horse? She does ride, and there is no question.
I know she rode anyway.
I'm sorry?
I know that she used to ride. I don't know that she has ridden in the last couple of years. I didn't know that.
Well, I without compromising any sources, she is super fit.
Yes, she is.
Super fit, and actually to ride a horse, I don't think she rides side saddle anymore.
No, she doesn't.
But to ride a horse, if one is used to riding, one still does have the the ability to do it.
She just went for a stroll.
And if a horse is walking, at a pace, then that is not necessarily the most testing of riding. I don't think she's cantering through. Sorry, our son just coming on.
No problem at all.
Sun's just coming on the broadcast. There we go. So I don't know. There's a lot about it that sort of is interesting. As I say, I validate anybody who seeks the truth. I'm a great student of Walter Bagot, who wrote the book on the British Constitution,
mm-hmm.
and that he isolates is the difference between the dignified, which is the spiritual quality of the monarch, and the efficient, which is the day-to-day running of the government itself. And he talks about why a constitutional monarchy works. And my feeling about Her Majesty is that she keeps alive the idea of sovereignty, which is in essence power of choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that we're moving into a time where we need more power of choice. Now, I don't think necessarily, and I'm certain, that some of her family members have been particularly well behaved, and that's an understatement.
Yeah.
One of the things I would just say, did you notice that Meghan met with Hillary Clinton when she came in? And I personally feel that Meghan is being groomed to run for president for the Democrats, and I'm sure that's something.
I think that will be the end of her career.
Yeah, I think it will be the end of her career. But certainly, Meghan, she started to be quite outspoken, hasn't she? With that, it's pretty interesting. Charlie, what would you say if you had to name 5 of the top sort of YouTube or let's call them free media channels that people should look at? Let's say there's somebody out there and they're going, listen, this is all a bit new to me. Who should I subscribe to? Who should we be empowering?
Well, I think you mentioned the first 2. Janet Ozenbard, who did the what was hers called? Not Out of the Shadows. The one before that. The
Fall of the Cabal.
Fall of the Cabal. There's 12 or there's more. I think there's 16 pieces of that now, 16 sections of that. That's very, very informative to the foundations of where you're going.
Right.
And the second one that you mentioned there as well, Out of the Shadows, is also very, very constructive. Once you get through that phase, then I tend to be looking at Santa Surfing, who I'm in contact with on a regular basis, Beach Broadcast in Hawaii. Bless her, she's a lovely, lovely lady. And it's always lovely to hear women talking about it, because I'm a huge fan of the matriarch.
Well, women, we have petticoat government in this family.
Oh yes, yeah, exactly. Well, if you're married or in a relationship with a woman from the Eastern Bloc, you obviously like strong women for a strong man.
Exactly.
This is one thing that I've said that lacks nowadays. The men in England are just jellyfish, a lot of them. They need a backbone. It's not about physical strength. It's about having a backbone and having a voice, and standing up for what you believe in. The other one I think is quite good to watch right now, X22 Report, is a guy that's talking about the quantum system a lot and understands the financial implications. Depends what you're looking at, because you've got all the different areas. If you're looking at the child trafficking, there's plenty. You're looking at the quantum financial system, there's plenty. You're looking at the fall of the cabal, the deep state, there's plenty. And it's what area, because there are so many areas. But if you're looking at the base foundation of where we're going, you start with the fall of the cabal. You start with that, and you start stage by stage and get an understanding of the foundation of where we're at. There's plenty of information out there, and then what you have to do is digest it, cross-reference it, and then challenge your inner side for the truth. And it's time for people to start looking inside themselves for the truth, rather than looking everywhere else. When you get the information, break it down and trust your intuition.
Well, I completely agree with you. We found, I think he's a friend of yours as well, but Sasha Stone has been to stay here.
Well, I've got an interview with Sasha on next Monday with Michael Tellinger and Sasha Stone.
He's an old friend, isn't he?
He's been to stay here a few times. And
What a lovely guy.
He's really, and what he's created out in Bali.
Yeah.
Very, very special. And he's, it's really, really interesting. And another friend of ours, Simon Parks, who has created a huge group called Connected Consciousness.
Okay.
One of the things that we're planning here, Charlie, is a light workers gathering. And when I say light workers, I mean that in a very broad sense of anybody who is interested in shining light on the dark and converting it into the light, and or shining light on the lies and converting it into the truth. And we would be most honored if you would join us at that. We'll let you know when that's going to be.
It'd be a huge honor.
And I think you're somebody who would absolutely add to that. Is there anything that you feel that people should be looking into right now? Is there something that you feel, what should our unified message be? If there is one issue that you would say, okay, what should we as campaigners, because we're not just all here watching videos. The whole point is do something. And I keep encouraging people to start their own channels, because we can't do it all. And actually it is possible to do it by starting your own channel, and you will reach people. But what would you say is the principal focus? What could people be doing to actually feel?
You start at the beginning, and one thing I feel very, very strongly about, and I cannot scream it out loud enough. At the moment, we're in the middle of summer, and old people who are wearing a mask are recycling their own air, which breaks down your immune system. So in the winter, when a genuine germ fest comes along, you're not going to be able to stand up to it. And in my opinion, that's genocide. And old people, you've got common sense, and I don't know what's happened to your brain. It's turned to mush. You need to start thinking about yourself. Because wearing this mask, recycling your own air. I see old people puffing and like walking up a street, and recycling the air. When something bad comes along in the winter, which it does every year, John. Every year it comes along. There'll be germs. There'll be this. There'll be that. Old people are going to get killed by the tens of thousands because their immune system is shot to pieces. And the sooner they wake up to the truth, the better, because that's the first step. When you wake up to the truth, we wake up to the reality, then you can start your journey. It's like climbing a ladder. You need to get onto the first rung. And as Jordan Peterson says, you can't put the world to rights until you've tidied up your bedroom. If your bedroom's a mess, don't come out and tell me how to change the world. You need to learn to get your house in order first before you start changing the world. Start at home, start with a mask, think about the principles of it. I knew that I couldn't beat the system, so I went to my doctor. First thing my doctor said was, Charlie, you need one of these in your pocket. I've never ever used it, but it's a visual thing. Then they say, oh, you need a medical certificate. I've got one of those in my wallet from my doctor that says that I shouldn't wear a mask. And they say, well, what did you say to your doctor? I said to my doctor that when I'm walking along the road with a mask on, I feel out of breath and I get panic attacks. And she said, you shouldn't be wearing a mask. It's not rocket science. She gave me a certificate saying I shouldn't wear a mask. I heard somebody the other day saying, I struggled to breathe. And I said, well, just tell your doctor. Your doctor will give you a letter saying that you struggle to breathe and you have panic attacks and you can't breathe and you feel dizzy. They can't make you wear a mask if you're feeling dizzy, because if you pass out and knock yourself out, they can't afford that kind of risk. But the trouble is 99% of the world is fast asleep on the mask thing. So with only 1% of people, when people start to wake up, then the movement will start to open up. And it's like opening a door. Once you start, then the door will open. And that's where we're at. You start at the beginning. You start looking at yourself. But also you have to look. What you don't want to do, the courts, there's no physical way the court can find you. The policeman on the street might give you a fine for 1,000 or 10,000. I don't care what it is. In front of a judge, there's nothing they can do because they haven't changed the law. It's a civil mandate. It's not the law.
So they can't enforce the fine.
They can't enforce the fine in the court of law. They're just doing it to scare you. If you go in front of a judge, the judge will throw it straight out. But rather than waste a day, my life is far more valuable than going to a court. So I just carry a letter from my doctor, and my inhaler cost €2 that I just got from the pharmacy. And then I got the letter which cost me €70. And now I've checked it at the airport with customs. I've checked it we have 3 police forces here in Spain. We have the Guardia Civil, the National Police and the local police. I've checked it with all 3 and they've all confirmed it's fine.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, I know I came back in from Iceland last week. So when I get back from Iceland last week, and the EasyJet were very strict on the mask wearing.
Yeah.
They said if I had a note from my doctor, that would have worked.
And also if you had a cup of tea.
And also if I was drinking a cup of tea.
Which you bought
and of
from
course,
them.
I was exempt.
You couldn't make it up, could you? You couldn't make it up. If my wife had told me last year that I'd have to supply a medical certificate and wear a mask going into McDonald's, I'd have thought she's absolutely nuts. But we had to do it yesterday because the kids wanted to go down and get some nuggets. And I walked in with my certificate. You're right, though. Once you show your certificate, with EasyJet, they had to phone the chief operating officer for me. They said, look, this man has a medical certificate. And he was like, well, you have to let him on. There's nothing you can do. He's got a... So they let me on. And when I got on there, I got a round of applause.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
And then the funny thing was I love my daughter and I was coming over to see my daughter. I actually had a mask in my back pocket just in case they wouldn't let me on. But I wasn't going to let them see it. But seeing my daughter was more important than the bullshit.
It's very, very serious.
And what do you have to say about the second lockdown?
Second lockdown's quite simple. It's to cover up the financial change between the old system and the new system to keep people out of the way. There will be a number of deaths that they'll put down as COVID-19. There are a combination of people that should have had operations back in March, April and May that didn't have them. They'll die because they didn't have the operations they needed. There will also be a number of people that die of heart attack and suicide when they find out the truth about what's happened. A lot of people will commit suicide. They'll all sadly go down as COVID-19 victims.
So you think there definitely will be a second lockdown?
I think there definitely will be. It'll be in September. I don't know what date it's from until, but they'll do it to cover up the transition period between the old system and the new system, and also to cover. And they'll say, look at the spike in deaths here. The deaths won't be anything to do with COVID-19. They'll manipulate the figures. It'll be suicides. It'll be heart attacks, and it'll be people that were not operated on when they needed operations.
And would it last long, in your opinion?
That I don't know. That will come down to a number of issues. It'll also cover up the final arrests. Here in Spain, a number of government officials will be lifted at that time, and worldwide there will be a lot of the final batch of arrests to be done, to be executed. And that's when we'll wake up to the fact that the people in power are no longer there, so they will need elections.
Well, I have to say, we really, really appreciate you expressing your thoughts here today, and thank you so much for the great service that you've done to all of humanity. I'm sure everybody on here will join me. You can't see the comments, but I can see the comments, and there are an awful lot of people that do appreciate what you have done, Charlie, to speak your truth. It's not easy. It does take a tremendous amount of courage. You have a family, you have a beautiful son, who I've seen, and you've got children, and to stick your head above the parapet. What I would say is that you are an honorary knight of the Round Table, and definitely nobility is innate. I think it's innate in us all, and I think one of the glorious things about what is happening is that our personal sovereignty is on the rise, and you are definitely championing that, and you're doing an incredible job. And will you come back on here when you hit 1 million followers?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. I haven't even thought about 1 million, but it's been quite a journey. I can tell you that. I think probably my high point was when Donald Trump retweeted one of our videos.
Did he really?
Fantastic.
Which one was that?
I don't know, but Lee Hemmington knows which one it was. But we know that he's been watching our videos, which is lovely.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that's
it's amazing what he does see.
Yes.
He stays connected. He really does.
And also, I don't know if you have a perception of this, but I think he's quite telepathic.
Yeah.
He is also feeling things through telepathy. It's not just the visual, it's not just he sees something, but he gets the zeitgeist. He feels the patterns. It's almost as if, in that Keanu Reeves movie, The Matrix, where he can actually see the code and he can sort of pluck the bullets out of the sky. Yesterday I thought was absolutely hilarious. He turned up to the press conference in the what is it called, in the press room there at the White House, and he said to them all, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all enjoyed your convention," referring to the fact that it had been the Democrat convention.
Yes. Yeah. We hear people talk about from 3D to 5D. Yeah. I don't know how many D is, but it's into the multi-teens, if not 20s.
I think you are. I think he is I think as a spirit, he's been preparing for this mission for a very, very, very long time indeed.
Yeah.
And, Jesus spoke when he referred to John the Baptist being the reincarnation of Elijah. He spoke to the idea of reincarnation. But if anybody has ever tried this, Google in images, Google Images, Donald Trump with General Patton, and then understand that General Patton died, I think, the week that Trump was born, or something
Very
like
close.
that. Very, very close indeed. Certainly the year he had died, in the year that Donald Trump was born. And, you know, there's all sorts of theories that go around. All I can say is that I believe that he has been on this mission for a very, very long time. And, you know, I'm sure he does appreciate your work, Charlie. I'm sure he does. And we will certainly be sending this through to our friends within his orbit. Let's just put it that way. Let's not get any of them into trouble. But friends within his orbit will be seeing this. And we very much look forward to receiving you here with full pomp and circumstance.
Thank you very, very much. And God bless Donald Trump. You know, he's doing an amazing job.
Absolutely. And could you, I mean, before we end off, we like to leave our audience with something positive. Could you give, what would your advice be to people that are watching for the next few weeks, few months? How do we get through it?
Well, we're coming through a very dark tunnel, but I tell you what, the light at the end of this tunnel is brighter than you've ever seen before. We're moving into a far better world, a far cleaner world, and a world far better suited for our children and our families. And I've got absolutely no doubt about it. But as with everything, and music is the best description, that the best songs are written out of pain and suffering. We've been through pain and suffering, but the song we're about to sing and about to see is far better than we've ever seen before.
Wow. That's so true, isn't it? Yeah. The way out is the way through.
That's right. That's right.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
It's a bit like a woman giving birth. It's very painful, but when we're at the other end, within seconds, she's forgotten all about it because she has a baby.
Very true. Very, very true. Well, it's been fantastic, Charlie. Thank you so much for your time. And we will be making all the documents that you've sent through available, and we'll stay in touch. And hopefully we'll welcome you here again to...
I'd love to. Thank you very much for the time that you've spent and the audience that you put this out to. I really appreciate that a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much for talking to us, Charlie. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
All the best. God bless you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, it's Justin, and I hope you're enjoying my dad's videos. Make sure to share this video with family and friends, like and subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you get notified for all my dad's new videos. My social media will be tagged down below so you can follow it. And just remember, Jesus loves you.